due to the way other people have treated us in the past, we can have issues trying to look after ourselves. And when that happens, because of the way people have treated us, we can feel that we can feel guilty for looking after ourselves. We can feel that we shouldn't spend money on ourselves, we shouldn't do things for ourselves. People will come into our lives and they'll want to be part of our life, but often it's to their advantage. And although we might enjoy the times with them to some degree, in the long run, it certainly gets the better of the situation rather than ourselves. And I had huge problems with that after my ex-wife left, and right up until I got the security job, till about 2000 and maybe 16, maybe 2016, 2000, probably 2017. And I had money, I had a job, I had money, and previously when I was in relationships, I was convinced that I always had to give money to others. My mother always complained that dad always took the money off her, and men always took the money off their wives, and therefore men were abusers and women weren't, and women were always innocent, men were always guilty. And as a little child growing up with that in my ear all the time, when I got married, I basically gave the bank to my wife because I was terrified I was going to abuse the money and I was going to keep it for myself. Every time I wanted to buy something like tools for the garage, she would have fits about how I was being selfish and spending on myself. So when she left, and then there were a lot of years spending money on the children, going without food for the children. You make the parental sacrifices. And then finally, when I got a job, there were no children at home. And I was really caught out. I didn't know what to do. I was like, this money started coming in. There were some financial issues with the company in the beginning. The wages weren't so forthcoming, but as time went by, a couple of years went by and everything was sorted out. And all of a sudden, I had like money in the bank. And at that stage, I was doing sometimes 7 days a week work. There was a lot of work to do. And I was doing a huge amount. We were constantly doing fixing ATMs with non-stop. It was full on. Um, I became qualified in that area as well. And so I was getting a lot of overtime. And that was, I remember ringing my daughter up, Grace, one day and saying, Grace, I don't know what to do because I'd gotten it in my head that the money wasn't mine because money's never been mine. I've been working since I was 18, but the money was always someone else's. It's always been taken off me. And so I said, I saw the bank account had money in it, and I thought, well, I better give this to charities. I better give this to something else. I better spend this money on obviously I was going to fix the house up, but I was going to put money on other things. And I kept telling and this to a person who had grown up in a confident home would seem utterly ridiculous. You'd look and say, are you nuts? It's your money. When people are always telling you that it's not yours, or they're always trying to take it off you through making you feel guilty and making you feel that you're not worthy, you have problems looking after yourself. And you don't know how to look after yourself, and you don't know how to do the right thing because you never really have. You're always giving it to everyone else, and everyone's always very happily taking and then telling you that you've been greedy and you've been selfish and you're always taking things for yourself. And I didn't realize this. I didn't realize I was doing this. And I read it in a few things about people that did that, and I thought, it does sound kind of similar. But it's kind of like being humble. If you say you're humble, people say you're not humble. So I was like trying to say to myself, don't make yourself special, James. Don't think you're special. And so I was motivating people on the internet. I was even helping people stop suicide and giving marriage advice and all sorts of stuff like that. And I was giving. And then I had this money in the bank. And so I rang Grace up and I said, Grace, I got this million, I got money. And Grace said, yes. And I said, I don't know what to do with it. I said, you guys want. I said, should I, do you need money? And she said, yeah. She said, she said, she said, this money's for you. And I hadn't been buying furniture, stuff for me. And I hadn't been buying stuff for me. Help me enjoy life, relax, and be happy like all the bikes I'd been buying up to that point were or second hand. I had money to buy brand new bikes, but I was buying second hand bikes because I didn't think I believed I deserved better. Prior to that, when my kids were at home, I was buying them new bikes. Sometimes when we could afford it and stuff. So she said, Dad, this is for you. This money's for you. She said, buy stuff for you. What do you want to buy? And I thought, well, I need tools. And she said, no, Dad, you need stuff for you. Stuff for you. Not tools, not things for the house, not. And I was very confused. And then I realised, what she was saying was when I was married, and there was something I wanted to buy, and I would say, Jay, wouldn't mind that? And my ex would say, no. And I wouldn't get it. The last thing I think I bought actually for myself that I really enjoyed having was my GT car. But that was like a long time earlier, and I was just met the woman who became my wife. The woman that became my wife, I just met her when I bought that car. So I was between girlfriends, and I bought a car on a whim. I kept driving past it, and I drove past it for about 3 weeks, and I kept looking at the car place while I was cycling home, cycling to work, cycling home. So I was seeing it like twice a day. If I was on day shift and other times, and I kept. And finally, I said to myself, James, go have a look at the car. So I crossed the road and I went over and I had a look. It was on the highway. And I walked up and I saw the car and I thought, oh my gosh, this is gorgeous. And I walked around the car. It had a sunroof, spotlights, all the additional stuff, vinyl roof. Looked really cool. And I said to the guy, oh, how much for that? And he said, oh, I'm selling it on behalf of a friend. And it was only $5,000, which was very cheap, I thought. And so I bought it. And I had the money. The money all just came forward at the right time. I had money from insurance and money in the bank and stuff like that. And I was between girlfriends, so I wasn't spending it on anything. And I bought it. And it lasted me for years, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. I drove a lot in it. But that was the kind of like the last thing I'd actually bought for myself. And after the ex was gambling money and spending money, and I didn't know, and she was getting into debt. I found it just before we split up. She got a loan, a huge loan, and then got another loan to pay off the first loan, and then she got little loans to pay off that loan. And then in the end, she had a whole bunch of loans, and I had no idea we even had one. And so when it finally came, we were so much in mega debt that every bank in town refused to give her a bank account, even though she was working at Wins. Every single bank refused to give her a bank account because of her reputation. They shut down her, I think she had a Visa. She had a Visa, her check account, her bank account, and anything that she had to do with banks. And that's how much debt we were in. And we had to survive like that until she got a bank at Kiwi Bank that had just coincidentally opened at the right time for her to have a bank account to put her wages in. So, yeah. Anyway, that was when I was doing computer programming. And anyway, so when I ran Grace up all these years later, in between all that time, I brought tools and stuff when I could, and I bought this and that when I could, stuff for the house when I could, but not for me. And what Grace was trying to tell me was, Dad, you're at a time in your life where you've got money, and you've got stuff, and you've got time, do stuff for you. And I'd forgotten how to do stuff for me. I don't know if I ever really did. And one thing I'd always wanted all my life was a Stratocaster, Fender Stratocaster, a genuine one, a real one. There are a lot of fakes you can get for $200-300, and they sound terrible. And first, I'd gotten a $100-200 Squire, Fender Squire, and it was rubbish. The sound was just horrendous. I hated picking strings. So I went out and I checked the internet, and I found a Fender Stratocaster 2002 for $1,500 probably, and I brought it. And I remember the shock of actually buying something for me, something big, something expensive. To me, that was expensive. And I was shocked, and I was overwhelmed, and it has now become the turning point where I stopped living for everyone else, and I just started learning to live for myself. I started making my own choices. I started thinking, well, what do I want with this, and what do I want with that? I remember going down to New World down here in town. There's very expensive cheese in it, and I've always been a great cheese lover. It's one of the biggest issues of being a vegetarian. And I went down on a Christmas, and I bought all the expensive cheeses that I could get. I just bought heaps. It cost me probably $100 or something. I don't know what it cost. It cost a lot of money. And through that Christmas period, which I worked through every Christmas anyway, but I ate these cheeses. And I was thinking, and one of the reasons I put a lot of weight on it is I've started enjoying the food I never had. One of the biggest issues I had after the kids went was I went into the biscuit aisle, and I'd been to when the kids were home, even in the 1990s when my children were little, I'd buy containers of ice cream and ice cream cones, and I'd have one ice cream cone a month. Or some cases, I remember we were really broke. I'd have one ice cream or some ice cream once a year, while the kids always got it. And the reason for that was because I didn't want them going without, and I didn't mind if I went without. You know, it's a sacrifice you make for your children. So I went down to the biscuit aisle in the supermarket, and I started buying biscuits I hadn't eaten in 20 years. Chocolate biscuits, like chocolate mints and chocolate macaroons, which used to be my absolute favourite, and stuff like that. And I'd bring them home and I'd eat them, and I'd be like, wow, this is what they tasted like. Yes, I remember these. And then I'd buy apple pies, and I'd buy stuff like that. And I didn't cook it because I knew if I cooked it, I'd end up with a huge amount of I put a lot of weight on. So I avoided certain things, but I started learning to buy stuff for myself. And I started buying brand weight training equipment, brand new punching bag, brand new equipment for martial arts, brand new really nice clothes and stuff like that. And I was learning and I was making decisions in my life that were based on me. I'd always been taught through my childhood by my mother, who was always telling me men were selfish. And I was always taught through my ex-wife that I was selfish. If I bought anything, it might sound crazy, but it's true. And if I bought anything for myself, then I was making other people go without for me. So I naturally had this desire to be responsible for my children and for my family. So I would go without for them. And it was the obvious thing you did. When my wife was here and we were so much debt, I didn't get the dentist and I didn't go to the doctors. And so if I was sick, I just stayed home and stayed sick. And it must have done a lot of that. At one stage, I was out in the garage doing computer work because there was no room in the house. And I can't remember what happened. There was a reason for it. I think I might have done it to give everyone in the house more room. But I ended up getting so sick that my lungs were half full of liquid. And the doctor was quite alarmed because I could have got pneumonia and just died. And I was only using half my breathing capacity. So, it's not good. But I learnt, and I'm putting this video up so that I want you to know that there is a time where you finally realize that you need to live your life for yourself. Buy stuff for yourself. You go out and make choices for yourself. Not what everyone else tells you to do. Make the choices that you think are right for yourself. What does your heart feel? What does your body feel? What does your mind feel? What would you like to try that you've never done before, like me buying the Fender Stratocaster, and then and I've got about 3-4 amplifiers for it. Buying the things you want to get for yourself, doing the things you want to do. Is there any place you'd like to go? Is there a place you've wanted to go for like years and years and never gone because other people have stopped you or you've put other people first? See, the problem with me was I kept putting people first. I kept putting other people first all the time. And I wasn't putting them because you got to look after yourself to be able to look after others. And I wasn't seeing it that way. I was seeing it was an honour and it was a responsibility to go without for other people. So I did. And at the moment, for the last 2-3 years, I spent a far less time on the internet helping people than I did before. Before I used to spend most of my day helping people, counselling people and stuff like that. I hardly do it now because I'm trying to find myself in everything I do. And a lot of the stuff on the website I'm doing a lot of the arts and the crafts and the stuff I've always wanted to do. I've never done before. So I think, well, let's do this stuff. Let's try this out. I've never done that before. And I keep buying stuff like that. I thoroughly enjoy it. And people say, oh, you're wasting your money. I tell you what, if any kids ever came, if I ended up with kids in the house, they love it because all the arts and crafts stuff I actually go now that's brand new that they can play with, like painting gear and all sorts of stuff like that. So I'm just trying stuff, and I believe we all need to come to this place in our life where we realize that we should look after ourselves. When you're a child and you're brought up in a good home, you know this. You already know that when you think, well, I'm going to buy me a car, I'm going to have the best clothes here, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do that, and I'm going to do, and you just go and do it. But when you have people making you feel guilty from childhood, that you're not good enough, that you're not up to their standard, that you're not worthy, that you're selfish and you're greedy and you're mean because of your gender or because of just who you are, and they just don't want you to excel. And you get to the stage as an adult, you think you're frightened. You put everyone first all the time. You feel so insecure and you feel very frightened. You actually feel scared that you've been selfish, that am I doing this just for me? Am I being greedy? And I remember talking to Grace with tears in my eyes, thinking, you mean I should go and buy stuff for myself? I was like, and other people think, don't be stupid, of course you don't. That wasn't how I felt. And so now I go on the internet and I shop and I buy clothes that I want to buy and stuff like that. And tools, especially tools that are unusual, that would make my life a lot easier, that if I had them, instead of doing it the long way and the hard way. So I buy that stuff now. And it's like the bike I've got, it's got those tires that you don't use a tube in and they self seal. Stuff like that. When I got the bike, I couldn't believe those tires. I never heard of them. And I remember when I got my Scott, I was so deprived of bikes. I always had the ones, the second-hand ones with the levers. I went down the road with a Scott bike and I couldn't change gears. There was no gear lever. And I couldn't, what's a gear lever? And I was totally lost. And it took me a while to realise it was the actual brake lever. You turned it sideways and it changed gear on either side. So I didn't know these things, and I've deprived myself on purpose because I've always felt that I was being greedy and selfish and taking for myself and being unfair to others, and I was feeling so guilty when I were in Grace Up. I thought all my money should go on charities, and I should spend everything on charities so that I'm doing good in the world, and I felt guilty buying for me instead of for the charities. I had to keep giving it to everyone else because it wasn't for me. I could earn it, but I could get the basics from it. If I needed a good torch for work, I could buy that, but not something to make me relax like playing the guitar. And stuff like that, and an expensive cell phone, I needed for work and stuff like that. And one of the things I really enjoyed is the two websites I've got. Absolutely love them. There, 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 and it's a real buzz. It's neat being able to create and do stuff in these videos with fancy backgrounds and stuff like that. I'm learning with green screen and all that, and it's what I've always wanted to do. I've always wanted to be into computer arts and crafts and photography and movie making. Tried to do it in high school. I was one of the poor kids. They wouldn't let me near the equipment, so I couldn't do it. So now I do stuff for myself. I learn how to enjoy life for me. And if I go down, like, and buy something to eat, I will buy it and try it out. And in your life now, with your past and the things and where you are in your life, learn to choose for yourself. Make yourself do it. Just say, look, I want that. Shall I get it? Get it. Do it. Do it for you. Look after yourself. And you'll find a whole new world will open up to you. And a whole new freedom will open up to you. And you will waste time and waste money and do some silly things. It's fine. It's all part of learning. It's what you should have achieved. All this buying for myself, I should have done when I was a teenager. So I'm learning and I'm growing and I'm having a better life and I'm trying everything I can. God bless you. I'll leave it at that.